Welcome everybody to Learn Economics with Abayomi, and on today's episode we'll be talking about the theory of consumer behavior series 1. And on today's theory of consumer behavior, let's first of all consider the definition of terms, because on today's video we'll be looking at the diminishing marginal utility. And before we consider diminishing marginal utility, let's first define some terms. And these terms will actually help us to understand the diminishing marginal utility very well. So first of all, let's consider utility. Now, utility is referred to the satisfaction a consumer derives from consuming a particular commodity. Now, take for example, when you purchase a particular commodity, be it a bottle of Coke, or satisfaction you derived from you consuming that bottle of Coke is called utility in economics. I hope you get that. And also, we'll be considering the total utility. Total utility is the total satisfaction a consumer derives from consuming quantities of a particular good. Now, take for example, that Coke that you purchased, the utility satisfaction you derive from Coke is utility. Now, take for example, you bought a certain amount of Coke. Now, the total satisfaction you derive from consuming a certain amount of Coke is called total utility. I hope you get me. And now, be considering the marginal utility. Marginal utility is referred to the additional satisfaction a consumer derives from consuming an extra quantity of a particular commodity. Now, marginal utility is the additional satisfaction you derive from consuming an extra amount of Coke. And now, from there, we can consider the diminishing marginal utility. Now, before we consider the diminishing marginal utility, let's first of all look at this. A consumer's decision on what goods and services to purchase depend on the satisfaction, which is utility, like I said earlier, he or she receives from the consumption of that good or service. Any decision you will make in purchasing a particular commodity, purchasing a quantity of Coke, or in purchasing a piece of clothes, your decision of purchasing that particular good, which whether clothes or Coke, depends on the satisfaction you derive from such commodity. And that is why you will purchase that particular, because of the satisfaction you derive as a consumer. That is why you purchase that particular good. I hope you get me. And given his or her income or the resources available to the consumer. Now, given the fact that you have a certain amount of income with you and the resources available for you to get that particular commodity, I hope you get me. So now let's define what we mean by the diminishing marginal utility. Now, diminishing marginal utility states that as a consumer consumes a particular commodity, its total utility increases. I hope you get me. As you consume more of a particular commodity, as you consume more quantity of Coke, your total utility increases. Hope you get me from what I've discussed about total utility and marginal utility on my live slides. So thus, any additional consumption of that particular commodity, any additional consumption, which is the marginal utility, any additional consumption of the Coke you purchase, makes your total utility, which is the total utility of the total satisfaction you derive, decreases. So what it means that given your Coke, you purchase your Coke, as you consume more of Coke, your total utility increases. As you consume more quantity of Coke, your total utility increases. Now it gets to a point that an additional quantity of Coke you consume will make your total your satisfaction decreases, and that is marginal utility. I hope you get the scenario. That is diminishing marginal utility. Now let's consider this graph. Now, looking at this graph on the vertical axis, we have the total utility and the marginal utility, and on the horizontal axis we have the quantity. Now, as you can see, we have the curve of the total utility, right? And we have the curve of the marginal utility. Now, from our example, from the law I've stated about diminishing marginal utility, we can see that as total utility increases, as more quantity of a particular commodity you consume, the total satisfaction increases, right? Now, it gets to this point, as you consume more, your marginal utility keeps decreasing. Let me use this. Now, your total utility increases as you consume more of a particular commodity. Now, your marginal utility decreases. Now, it gets to a point that your marginal utility becomes zero. When your total utility is at maximum, your marginal utility becomes zero. And this point we call the saturation point. This is the point of saturation. So any additional commodity you consume will make your total utility decrease. And when your total utility decreases, your marginal utility becomes negative. That means at that point, you are not yielding any satisfaction. That is a point of dissatisfaction. At that point, any additional amount of coke you consume at when your total utility is decreasing will yield negative satisfaction. I hope you get that. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you got so much value. You can please like the video and also please subscribe to the channel. So thank you so much, and see you next time.